In question 1, I have a total of 5 plus 3 plus 4, which is equal to 12 parts. And then to find how much money each of them gets, I will do 5 over 12 times my total amount, which is 2,250 for the first person. And then repeat 3 over 12 times the total amount is 1,350 for the second one. And once more, 4 over 12 times the total amount, that's 1,800 for the last person. For question 2, note that the answer wants newtons per meter square, but I have centimeters squared, so I need to convert the 120 cm squared to meters squared. Now, when you convert centimeters to meters, you divide by 100, but because I have area and this is squared, I need to divide by 100 squared. So it's going to give me 0.012 meters squared. So the pressure is equal to 810 over 0.012, which will give me 67,500 newtons per meter squared. In part A, I'll start by converting 140 and 245 as products of prime numbers. So for 140, I can divide by 2, that's 70, divide by 2, it's 35, divide by 5, I get a 7, and then 7, I get 1. So 140 is 2 squared times 5 to the 1 times 7 to the power of 1. And then repeat for 245, divide by 5, you get a 49, divide by 7, 7, and then 7 again leaves a quotient of 1. So 245 can be written as 5 to the power of 1 times 7 squared. So the highest common factor is equal to the product of all common prime factors to their lowest powers. So I've got a 5 to the power of 1 times 7 to the 1, and this will give me 35. For part B, I will need to work out the lowest common multiple of these two numbers. Now again, I will start by writing them as products of prime factors. So for 50, I'm going to divide by 2. It's going to give me 25, then by 5, 5, 5, and 1. So 50 is equal to 2 to the power of 1 times 5 squared. Repeat for 80. So divide by 2, that's 40, by 2 again, 20. Again by 2 gives me a 10. 2 again, 5, and then 5, 1. So 80 is 2 to the power of 4 times 5 to the power of 1. Now the lowest common multiple of these two numbers is equal to all the prime numbers, so 2 and 5 to their highest powers. So 2 to the power of 4, 5 to the power of 2. This will give me 400, and these are minutes. I can convert this to 6 hours and 40 minutes. So starting from 10 a.m. and adding 6 hours and 40 minutes will give me 1640. That's my answer. You can also write, if you want, 4:40 p.m. So in part A, I can take out a common factor of 3y, and I'll be left with 2y plus 5. Part B, expand. This will give me m squared minus 5m plus 9m minus 45. I can simplify the m terms, so m squared plus 4m minus 45. In part C, I need to make t the subject of this expression, of this equation, So 2s equals at squared. So 2s over a is equal to t squared. So t is equal to the square root of 2s over a. And then in part D, I need to solve that equation. I'll start by cross multiplying. So 6x minus 5 is 2x plus 2 if you do the expansion as well. And then I'm going to take the 2x to the left, the minus 5 to the right. So 4x equals 7. X is 7 over 4. I'll start question 5 by transferring the information given here on the diagrams. So 5/8 of rectangle A is shaded, which means that 3/8 are not shaded, and I can transfer this one to rectangle B. Now, I'm also given that 80% of rectangle C is shaded, which means 20% is not shaded. Again, copy this one to rectangle B. And I need to know what fraction of rectangle B is shaded. Well, it's the whole thing minus 20% minus 3/8. So let's add 20% plus 3 over 8 gives me 23 over 40. So the total 40 out of 40 minus 23 out of 40 will give me 70 over 40. And this is the final answer. For question 6, a percentage increase of 3% corresponds to a multiplying factor of 103 over 100 or 1.03. So I'm gonna start with the initial amount, multiply this one by 1.03 and get the final amount. For part B, I have a price reduction by 15%. So the multiplying factor in this case is 100 minus 15, which is 85 over 100 or 0.85 as a decimal. So my initial amount, which is x times 0.85, will give me my final amount. So the initial one is the final one over my multiplying factor, which will give me 7,800. For this question, let's remind ourselves of the formula for the mean. The mean is equal to the sum of the observations divided by the number of observations, and this sum can be denoted by the sigma x. So I'm gonna split my page into two. Half of it will be for the 7 games, the other half for the 8 games. Now, using the formula above for the 7 games, I have 42 equals to the sum over 7. So the sum of these 7 games has a total of 294. For the 8 games, the sum is equal to 94 plus an extra score which we don't know. So the mean, using the formula above again, is 50 equals 294 plus x over 8. So if I solve this equation, 400 is equal to 294 plus x, and x comes out to be 106. For part A of this question, the answer is 93 with 6 zeros. For part B, I'm going to first look at the powers of 10. I've got 2 of them with the least power, that's Hungary and Singapore. And then from these 2, the smallest one is 5.7 for Singapore. For part C, I will need to work out the difference between these two populations. So let's write this as a subtraction. Now, some calculators might give you this as 55 with 6 zeros. You need to convert it into standard form, and the answer is 5.5 times 10 to the power of 7. I'll start question 9 by drawing a vertical height from the top vertex to the base. Now this is 90 degrees. That's one of the properties of an isosceles triangle. Now to find h, I'll use Pythagoras theorem. So 14.5 squared is equal to h squared plus 10 squared. 10 because that's half of my 20. So h is equal to 14.5 squared minus 10 squared, and then you take the square root of that, and the answer will be 21 over 2. So the area of this triangle is base times height over 2, which is 20 times 21 over 2 all over 2, and the answer is 105. There are various methods to solve question 10. I will go with elimination, and I'll try and eliminate y from the simultaneous equations. I'll multiply the first equation by 5 and the second one by minus 3. So I get 35x plus 15y is equal to 100, and from the second one, minus 9x minus 15y is equal to minus 9. And then I will proceed to add the two equations. The 15y and the minus 15y cancel out, so I get 26x equals to 91. So x comes out to be 7 over 2. And then you can substitute this one in any of the equations. I will substitute in the second equation. So I get 3 times 7 over 2 plus 5y is equal to 3. So 21 over 2 plus 5y is equal to 3. 5y will be equal to minus 15 over 2. So y is minus 3 over 2. So my solutions are x is 7 over 2 or 3.5, and my y is minus 3 over 2 or minus 1.5. In question 11, I'll start by finding the median and the interquartile range for the maths test. Note that the observations are already in ascending order. So for the median, which is Q2, this is 1 over 2 times n. In our case, 1 over 2 times 15. So that's the 7.5. I will round up. So that's the 8th observation, which is 26. Now to find the interquartile range, I'll find Q1, Q3, and then subtract. For Q1, I will get a quarter of n. So a quarter of 15 is equal to 3.75. I will round to the next one. So 4th observation, which is the 20. And then for Q3, that's 3/4 of n. So 3/4 of 15, which is 11.25. Note I'm rounding to the next integer. So that's the 12th one, which is 29. So the IQR is equal to Q3 minus Q1, which is 29 minus 20, which comes out to be 9. Now, for the comparison, one of the comparison is that maths results are higher because they have a higher median. You could also say the reverse, that English results are lower because there is a lower median. Now for the second comparison, we're going to say that maths results are more consistent because the IQR is smaller. Or we could say the reverse statement, that the English results are more spread out because there's a higher IQR. In question 12, we are given that EJ is 4 times AE. So if A is 1, EJ is 4, and the length of AJ is 5. So the scale factor between the two pentagons is 5. So the area of the big pentagon is the area of the small pentagon times my scale factor squared, which is equal to 8 times 5 squared, which comes out to be 200. So the shaded area is equal to 200 minus the white one, which is 8. So the shaded area is 192. I'll start question 13 by using the formula for the gradient. Let's substitute the values from above. So I've got 7 minus minus 1 over 4 minus 1. This comes out to be 8 over 3. And then I'm going to use the formula for the straight line, y equals mx plus c. Now the gradient is 8 over 3. I can use any of those 2 points. I'll use the second one. So 7 equals to 8 over 3 times 4 plus c. 7 is equal to 32 over 3 plus c. So c comes out to be minus 11 over 3. So my equation is y equals 8 over 3x minus 11 over 3. Now I want to put this in this form. A and B, C are integers, and then I want x and y on the same side. So I'll multiply this by 3, and I get 3y equals 8x minus 11. And then I'm going to take everything to one side, so I get minus 8x plus 3y equals minus 11. Or I could put it in the reverse sides and I get 8x minus 3y equals to 11. Any of the two is an acceptable answer. And question 14, I'll start by finding angle ABD, which is this one. That's 43, because these two are angles in the same segment. I will proceed with angle BAD, which is this one. That's a right angle. That's an angle in a semicircle. And finally, I will find the required angle by using the sum of the angles in a triangle. So ABD is equal to 43 degrees. Angles in the same segment are equal. Then angle BAD is equal to 90 degrees because angle in a semicircle is a right angle. And finally, ADB is equal to 180 minus 90 and 43. And this comes out to be 47. And the reason is that angles in a triangle add up to 180. In question 15, P is inversely proportional to the square root of Q. So P is equal to K over square root of Q. Let's substitute the values we were given. 10 equals to K over square root of 0.0064. So K comes out to be 0.8. So the formula is P equals 0.8 over square root of q. In part B, we are given a value of p. We need to find the value of q. So 20 equals to 0.8 over the square root of q. If I cross multiply, square root of q comes out to be 0.8 over 20, which is 1 over 25. Let's continue here. Q is 1 over 25 squared, and the answer is 1 over 625, or 0.0016. Any of the two will get you the marks. In question 16, the point of intersection of the two lines is R. So my formula will use R as the starting point. So I've got RS times RT equals RQ times RP. Now we want to find PQ. So I'm going to label this distance as X. So let's substitute the values in. 3 times 11.5 is equal to 5 times 5 plus X. Let's solve this one. 34.5 is equal to 25 plus 5X. Let's continue on the sides. 9.5 equals to 5X. So X comes out to be 1.9. I'll start question 17 by taking everything to one side. So x squared minus 4x minus 5 is greater than 0. That's a quadratic inequality. I will factorize, so x minus 5, x plus 1 is greater than 0. Now the critical points or the roots are x equals 5 or x equals minus 1. So let's make a rough sketch. I'm only interested on the x-axis. So the 2 points are minus 1 and 5. I need the region above the x-axis, so it's the one to the left of minus 1 or to the right of 5. So my solution would be x less than minus 1 or x bigger than 5. And in part B, I need to show this on a number line. So I've got minus 1. I've got 5 open circles because this is a strict inequality, and I've got the region to the left of minus 1 or to the right of 5. For question 18, I will create an equation based on the last statement. Let's split the page into two, one to work out the volume of the water and the other to work out the volume of the container. Now, the water in the container has the shape of a cylinder, so I've got pi r squared h. Now, r is 6 and the height is given as t, so this would be as 36 pi t. The container is a cylinder and a hemisphere together, so I've got pi r squared h plus a half of 4 over 3 pi r cubed. Note I can cancel out the 2 with the 4. So pi 6 squared times 10 plus 2 over 3 pi times 10 to the power of 3. This simplifies to 360 pi plus 144 pi, which will give me 504 pi. Now, as given by the highlighted statement, the volume of the water is equal to half the volume of the container. Let's simplify this one. 36 pi t is equal to 252 pi. So t is equal to 252 pi over 36 pi, which gives me exactly 7. In question 19, I'm given a histogram. I'm given that the total frequency is 150, and I need to know how many of those 150 are in the group between 50 and 55. Now I'm going to use the principle that area and frequency are proportional, meaning that the fraction of the area of this group compared to the rest is equal to the same fraction of the frequency of that group compared to the rest. So I'll start by scaling the y-axis. Note that the scaling does not make a difference to your final answer, so any scaling can be used. So this is the scaling I'm using. And now I will proceed to find the area of each bar. To make my calculations easier to follow, I will write everything in the form of a table. This is the table I'm using. Now the heights, I can read this from the histogram. Again, depending on your scaling of the y-axis, you'll get different values here. From my scaling, I get the following: 17, 36, 44, 20, and 9. Now the widths, this is the difference between the upper bound and the lower bound of each group. So I get a 10, 20, 5, 15, and 10. And then the area is just the height times the width. I get 170, 720, 220, 390, and if I add this up, I will get 1,500. And the fraction of the area in this group is just 220 out of 1,500. So how many people out of 150? And X comes out to be 22 people. For question 20, I will let the two numbers be 2n plus 1 and 2n plus 3. Note that other possible numbers can be used, like 2n minus 1 and 2n plus 1. I'm going to do that at the end of the question so you can see that as well. So continuing from here, let's square both of those numbers and then subtract, since I have a difference, to see what we get. So 2n plus 3 squared is equal to 4n squared plus 12n plus 9, and then 2n plus 1 squared is equal to 4n squared plus 4n plus 1, and then I can subtract those two side by side, so I get 2n plus 3 squared minus 2n plus 1 squared is equal to, now the 4n squares cancel out, and I have 8n plus 8, which I can factorize as 8 times n plus 1. And since I can write this difference as 8 times something, then it is divisible by 8. So let's write down a conclusion. Now, as I told you before, I will do this again, but this time my two numbers will be 2n plus 1 and 2n minus 1. So if I expand the top, I'm going to get 4n squared plus 4n plus 1. The second one will give me 4n squared minus 4n plus 1. And if I subtract the two, I'm going to get 2n plus 1 squared minus 2n minus 1 squared. And this will be equal to 8n. And the same conclusion holds. In question 21, I need to sketch this quadratic curve. Now I know there's a minimum point because it's a positive quadratic. Now to find the coordinates where the curve intersects the axis, I will start by setting x is 0. And if I substitute x is 0 into this equation, I'm going to get y is equal to 4. So the y-intercept is 0, 4. Now I will proceed and find the x-intercepts, the roots. I will do this by setting y is equal to 0. So I get 0 equals x squared minus 6x plus 4. I can't factorize. I can use any other method like completing the square or quadratic formula. I will go with the quadratic formula. So x is equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Let's substitute the values. So x is equal to minus 6 plus or minus square root of minus 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 4 over 2 times 1. This will give me two x values. I get 3 plus or minus the square root of 5, which means that I have 3 minus square root of 5, comma 0, and 3 plus square root of 5, comma 0. Note that these are approximately 0.8, comma 0 and 5.2, comma 0. Now to find the turning point, I can use either completing the square or differentiation. I will proceed with differentiation. So dy dx is equal to 2x minus 6. For a turning point, I'm going to set this equal to 0 and solve. X comes out to be 3. And if I substitute this one into the original equation, I will get a value of y as minus 5. So 3 minus 5 is my turning point. So let's put everything on the graph. I've got a y-intercept of 4, 2 positive roots, and a turning point below the x-axis. So my graph looks something like this. My y-intercept is a 4. My turning point has coordinates 3 minus 5. Now, since I don't have enough space on the graph to put the coordinates of the roots, I'm going to label them as A and B. And I can write here A and B. In question 22, I'm going to let x be the total number of counters. Now, there are 7 red and the rest are blue. So I've got x minus 7 blue. And I'm also given that there are more blue than red. So blue is bigger than red. So x minus 7 is bigger than 7, which means that x is bigger than 14. I'll probably use this restriction at some point to select a value of x. So let's try and create a tree diagram. Although we are not asked to do a tree diagram, it will be helpful to reach to an equation. Now for the first selection, there are 7 red out of a total of x. So 7 over x is the probability of selecting a red one. And for the blue one, I've got a total of x minus 7 out of x blue. Now I'm interested in having one counter of each color. So we are only interested in these two outcomes, red blue or blue red. So let's only find these two probabilities. Now, if the first counter is red, then the total decreases by 1, but the number of blue counters stays the same. So I've got x minus 7 over x minus 1. And then for the branch below, if the first counter is blue, then the total decreases by 1, but the number of red counters stays the same. So I've got 7 out of x minus 1. So the two probabilities are 7 over x times x minus 7 over x minus 1. This is for the red-blue combination. And the one below is x minus 7 over x times 7 over x minus 1. And the sum of those two should be 7 over 15. So let's write this down. Now note that these two are exactly the same. So I can multiply this by 2 and get 2 times 7x minus 7 over x minus 1 is equal to 7 over 15. And this will give me 14x minus 7 over x minus 1 equals 7 over 15. Now I can cross multiply. I will get 210 times x minus 7 equals to 7x x minus 1. Let's expand. 210x minus 1470 equals 7x squared minus 7x. Let's take everything to one side. So 7x squared minus 217x plus 1470 is equal to 0. I can divide this by 7. Let's continue on the side. And this will give me x squared minus 31x plus 210 is equal to 0. Now you can use any method to solve this quadratic equation, either factorization or the quadratic formula or completing the square. I will factorize, and I'm going to get x minus 21, x minus 10 equals to 0. So x is 21 or x equals to 10. Remember at the beginning we saw that x should be bigger than 14. So I'm going to reject the x equals 10. So my answer is 21. Let's start question 23 by drawing a diagram. So from town A at a bearing of 105, I'll find town B. So here is town A. Let's draw the north and let's make an angle of 105 starting from the north and going clockwise. Now town C is at a bearing of 230 from B. So let's make the north at B and measure an angle of 230 starting from the north and going clockwise. Let's join A to C and create a triangle and put the distances on the shape as well. Now the angle AB to the north is equal to 75 because interior angles add up to 180 degrees. And also the third angle on that shape, on that point, is 55 because angles at a point add up to 360. Now I'll be working with triangle ABC, so I'm going to extract this on the side to create a clearer picture of what I'll be using. Now I need to find the length AB, which I marked as X on my diagram. To do so, I'll need another angle. I will need angle A. Let's mark this with a Y on my diagram. I'll first find angle Y. So using the sine rule, we have 95 over sine A equals to 180 over sine 55, which means that sine of A is 95 times sine of 55 over 180. So angle A, this is the same as angle Y, is inverse sine of that fraction above. And if I use my calculator, I will get 25.61553453. Now, angle C, this angle here, is equal to 180 minus 55, and this angle I just found. So C comes out to be 99.384465547, and then using the sine rule again, x over sine of this angle is equal to 180 over sine of 55. So x is equal to 180 times sine of 99.38 and so on over sine of 55, and this one will give me 217 kilometers to the nearest kilometer.